Hey guys, welcome back, and today another week of the box office, so let's get into it. Up first we have & Juliet, which played to how it's been doing the past couple of weeks. 98% last week and 897k, 96% this week and 813k. Now obviously & Juliet is a show that's been here for 3 years now, so it's not going to be doing $1 million every single week. However, I do think that it is doing fine. You know, it's not failing, it's not doing terrible, it's just doing okay, if that makes sense. It's had a pretty good 2025. And you know, I think it's gonna have many more years being here. But things could change. So then we have Boop, and that show is on the death knell. When is it gonna close? Again, I don't want it to close, but fiscally, it's not a fiscal responsible thing to keep Boop going. It's playing to 78% this week and 492k. And last week, 82% and 528k. Now obviously, they are not nominated for Best Musical, so they're not performing on the Tonys. There's a petition, and that's not gonna happen, I don't think, to get it to be on the Tonys. And even if it did, it would not help ticket sales. You know, I think it's kind of like the Democratic Party. They're not expanding their base, they're just keeping their base. And Boop has found its base, and it's not expanding. It's also not decreasing, it's just staying the same with a slight increment every now and again. You know, it's a much older, it's a much more old-fashioned show that doesn't necessarily appeal to today's modern crowd. You know, Tootsie and Beetlejuice is a good example. Tootsie being, you know, kind of like Boop. I think a weak marketing campaign, and I think a lot of audiences just don't like the show a lot. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple when you boil it down. Vista Social Club, 101% last week, and 1,240,685 to this week's 99%, and 1,161,897. Cabaret continues to do just totally unacceptable numbers, considering the production value. It costs $1.1 million per week. 88% last week and 903k. This week, 78% and 733k. And then we got Dead Outlaw, and that has to win Best Musical because it is doing very poor. This week, or last week, 86% and 566k. This week, 78% and 465k. And they're doing their darndest to market this. You know, they're doing Andrew Durand in the park, and you know, putting out music videos and behind the scenes. They're doing all of the things they need to do. It's just not enough, and I think that is because, one, I think they could be focusing more on what the musical is about and promoting the music. Like why they didn't have flyers on the coffin that Andrew was in was kind of weird to me. Also, I think the main issue, right, is that maybe Happy Ending, also an original musical that not all people are going to be instantly, I need to see this. But maybe Happy Ending is a much more simpler concept to sell. It's more mainstream, and it has a much more united response to it. Dead Outlaw, critics love it, but audiences, if you go on the message boards, people are divided. I feel like it's 60% of people that don't get it, wouldn't see it again, isn't going to recommend it, versus 40% that are me, that get it, that love it, that would tell people to see it again. And that's a huge issue that sadly cannot be solved with marketing, only with a Best Musical win. And even if it wins Best Musical, I fear that it will not be enough to sustain it, that it will be here a year from now, because again, it appears to be such a very divisive musical. And a lot of people just do not like it. Even people that liked it downtown. And I do think that they will unfortunately lose Best Musical, could lose every single award. And I think if that's the case, I see this closing at the latest in September. Maybe they want to hemorrhage money until the end of the year, but again, it's not doing objectively good. We are only giving it a pass because it could win Best Musical. So, and it is less expensive to put on than Boop. But again, it needs to win Best Musical. And again, even if it does, again, if audiences are divided, you're in an original musical, you're in a bad place. And I do think that, you know, this is going to be something that feels very underappreciated, and I feel like is ahead of its time. And I think that 20 years from now, there's going to be a Merrily-esque type revival that people will see, oh, this is what we missed out on. But I do think having a big star in Dead Outlaw maybe would have been the smarter business move. Death Becomes Her, 99% last week, and 1,559,924 to 94% and 1,346,164. Pretty significant decrease, but still fantastic week. Floyd Collins, 75% and 503K. This week, 73% and 469K. It is a limited engagement, so it doesn't matter how bad it does. It's not doing bad enough to justify an early closing. Although I do think that Lincoln Center was not a good place to put Floyd Collins. It's meant to be in a smaller venue, I believe, even though it works in a big venue just from a financial standpoint. And it has that same issue that Dead Outlaw has, and that it is very divisive. There's a lot of people that do not like Floyd Collins, although they're not marketing it, you know, I mean, they're putting out singles and everything, but they're not, like, needing to put as much effort into it. But again, it's not going to be here for too much longer. It is closing this month, and I highly suggest you see it if you can. Gypsy, 73% and 1,144,339. This week, 76% and 1,109,959. Hadestown, 98% and 780K. This week, 96% and 721K. Harry Potter, 80% last week and $1 million. This week, 74% and 854K. Again, I think that this is one of a possible contender to close because it is not sustainable at these numbers. And again, if you look at 2025, it's not even like in the beginning it was doing enough where they have steady feet. I don't think it will close in 25 or in 26, but I think there's very much justification that it closes. Hell's Kitchen, 88% and 956K last week. This week, 87% and 939K. Just in Time sells out again, 103% capacity. Last week, 1,217,522. This week, 1,217,729. Maybe Happy Ending play to 101% capacity, and 1,091,668 last week, and 1,104,808 this week. Round of applause. We've come a long way since the fall. This was maybe Happy Ending's best week of all time. And again, it's poised to win Best Musical. And if it does, again, guys, this thing, 1,000,003, 1.4, 1.5, it's gonna happen. And I think that the Best Musical brand desperately needs this win, especially after Kimberly Akimbo and A Strange Loop failed financially. And I don't count The Outsiders because it was based off of an existing property, and so it wasn't like a small musical that could, the way that these all are. Mincemeat sells out, 800K last week, 729K this week. Curves continues to fail with 72% last week and 405K, and 67% this week and 391K. And they are performing on the Tonys, and that's very much, that makes sense, because I'm like, that's why they're staying open. But like Boop, you found your audience. It's not going to get any better. It's over. 6 is not doing as good as it was, but it's had a pretty fantastic 25. You're seeing it doing a little bit worse in the past month and a half, but it's been here for 3 years. It recouped its investment. It did 83% last week and 712K, and 77% and 633K this week. Smash is proving to be not a smash at the box office. 83% last week and 872K, and 68% and 625K. What a horrible decrease. This is when the alarm bells are going. Most shows that go to that decrease do not recover. So it is kind of playing out the way I thought. It's another New York. You know, it doesn't have any of that Tony momentum, and that is very much appealing in the box office. At the end of this month, if this is doing 5s and 60s, it's closing at the end of the summer. But if it can maintain a 70%, 80%, and it's not going to be good, but 700K with the occasional 6, I see it going until the end of the year, because I think the producers of Smash would do that. Although there are the, you know, things going out there that chess is going to be going to the Imperial, and I think they're coming in the fall or maybe in the next year, but you know, I think, you know, Smash is very vulnerable now. Stranger Things continues to underwhelm. 89% last week and 1,041,110. This week, 83% and 896K. And again, I think that it's, you know, many reasons, but they need to market it as a stage show, promote it more. I think that season 5 will help it, but again, it's a long show. It's dark, so it's not necessarily family friendly. You have to watch 5 seasons of it, and you know the momentum isn't there. But I think that the new season will make it go to that height. But it is just very concerning that it's not doing good now, because it should. But again, I think, you know, if it truly doesn't do better, you know, because the brand has taken a break for 3 years, you know, and it does these numbers a year from now, or like in the fall, or in the summer, or in the winter, and Stranger Things is coming out in November and December, then I think it truly is that, you know, one, people might not be so interested in seeing, you know, IP plays and stuff anymore, but also the quality of the show is not good enough to get people to come back. And the thing is, there is spectacle, but there's not nearly as much spectacle as one maybe would expect or hope, and there's certainly not as much spectacle as Harry Potter. So that's just a little thing on Stranger Things. Sunset, 91% last week and 1,053,373. This week, 88% and 1,253,002. Great Gatsby, 94% and 1,128,846. And this week, 93% and 1,075,762. The last 5 years is, again, doing worse than Dead Outlaw and Floyd Collins. 88% last week and 535K. This week, 79% and 460K. What an embarrassment. And then The Outsiders sells out 1,268,158 last week. This week, 1,201,657. So those are the numbers for this week. Overall, not a lot of change except for Smash, and, you know, Boop and Curves hanging on by a pin. And I think that maybe Happy Ending is on its way to becoming the next Hadestown Dear Evan Hansen, and it seems like Dead Outlaw is not long for this season. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, sub, comment, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.